Good morning, my fellow bike enthusiasts. It is Bike Guy Alex back with another video. And today I want to take you along on my Saturday adventures, working on bikes, riding bikes, and whatever else I can get up to. As some of you might have already seen from my last week's video, I still have some work to do on my gravel conversion itself. So that's going to be the bike that we kind of work on today. But I'm also going to head over to the Village Bike Shed because I need some parts and some tools from them. So we'll see what else I can get up to while I'm there. Let's get my morning started and head off to the Village Bike Shed. So for the past week that I've been riding my gravel bike, I've noticed that there seems to be a pretty large bump in my rear rim, which causes my rear brake to be super jerky, which sucks. So I've only been using my front brake, which also sucks because I feel like that's pretty dangerous if I have to stop pretty fast. So coming to the bike shed, I was assuming that I would probably just have to get a new rear rim for my bike, and that this wasn't going to be something that would be super easy to fix or really possible to fix. But after talking to my buddy Eric, that also volunteers at the bike shed, he told me that if I was planning on just, swapping out the rims, might as well just try to tap out the little bump in the rim anyways. So that's what we did, and we got the bump out pretty easily. Now, if you are going to do this at home and you have a little bevel or bump in your rim, be careful when you're hammering it. You can very easily damage your rim to a point of no return. I was in the mindset of getting a new rim anyways, so I was completely okay if we ended up breaking the rim and it was no longer usable. So, yeah. Then I worked on finding a front derailleur for this bike. As you might know from my previous video, the front derailleur on this bike does not work with the shifters that I put on the bike. So I went through the parts bin at the Village Bike Shed and looked for a new derailleur. Now, this was extremely hard because of how thick the tubing is on this bike. Not just any derailleur will work. And it seems like all of the mountain bike front derailleurs are not vertical pull, which I think was a necessity for this shifter. I don't know if that's the truth of it, but that's what I felt like it needed. Anyways, I thought that I found one that was going to work and got it on the bike, got it all cabled up. It was shifting, and then I realized that the chain guide was broken, and I was pretty devastated. So I then dug through the parts bin again, couldn't find another derailleur that would work. and ended up just having to throw back on the original derailleur and run it in that fixed position so that the bike was running and I could get it home. I was pretty devastated about this, so I walked around the bike shed and looked at a bunch of the cool bikes here. That felt like double speed fixed gear bike was so cool. Every time I come, I feel like I spot another new cool bike that I haven't seen before. So, love coming to the bike shed and helping out and working on bikes. So, yeah, fantastic place, great environment. Then the lads and I decided that we would try to organize the place a little bit because it is a huge mess and very unorganized. And we just have way too many bikes. And a lot of the bikes are cheap Kmart bikes that really don't have much value or even potential to be restored and used again. So we dragged a lot of bikes out and started a huge pile for what we were going to end up taking to the tip, and started to kind of clean up and organize the space just so that it's more usable and friendly for the community members that come in to use or shop in the space. So, helping with that, I decided to tackle this huge pile of tires that was just kind of stacked on top of these bikes, and went through and checked if any of the tires were dry rot, checked all of the tread on the tires to see which ones would be usable on future bikes and which ones would probably never end up on another bike and should just go to the tip. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, was just sorting the tires from, yeah, these are good, these are usable, these will end up on another bike at some point, probably, hopefully. These ones are dry rot, don't have enough tread, whatever, they're going to go to the tip. So sorted out this huge pile of tires and took out any of the tubes that were still in these tires and checked to see if they were still good or if they still had any holes in them. So took the tubes out, ended up pumping them up, and the ones that held air and I couldn't hear a leak or I couldn't hear any issues with them holding the air, I put them aside and hung them up, and we'll see next time I go back if they still hold air and they're still good and usable. And the hope is that they are. Then after I got all of the tires sorted, I then needed to put them into a space that was out of the way. And we have these little hanging racks for tires. So I started to put them up there, and then I realized, although I am a very tall, handsome man, I was not going to be able to reach these without a ladder. So I ended up going to get a ladder and climbed up there and started just loading these racks up with tires. And yeah, here is the finished sort of product of what we did. It's still way too many bikes, still pretty cluttered, but looks way better, is way more organized. And look at that space that I cleared out. Now we kind of have two entrances into the main part of the shop, which is really cool. And then I finished up at the bike shed and decided to spin my way home. And the sun had come out at this point, so I was pretty happy, although I was a bit devastated with not being able to finish my bike and get my gravel bike to the spot that I wanted it to be. I was really planning on finishing up the gravel bike today and getting it to that ultimate gravel bike spot that I wanted it to be at, but I couldn't find the front derailleur, and that really just, that just sucked. It really made me demoralized. So, although I have the brake adapters for the V brakes at home, I decided not to continue working on that bike because I was pretty frustrated and pretty demoralized that I wasn't able to get that bike to the point that I wanted it to be at, because I couldn't find a front derailleur that would work with that bike. So ended up coming home and just changing the tire on my girlfriend's bike because that back tire has gone flat so many times. It's ridiculous. I've changed the tube probably 4 or 5 times now in the back tire, and this is the fifth or sixth time that I've had to change it because it just keeps going flat. Let me know if it's because Billy Bonkers are the most puncture prone tires known to man, or if it's just bad luck. But yeah, that's how I ended my Saturday on a high note, changing my girlfriend's tube on her bike so that we could then go for a bike ride on Sunday together. And yeah, that's all I've got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I'm bummed I didn't finish the gravel bike, but when the gravel bike is done, you will get a bike check update so that we can see it in all of its glory. Anyways, that's all for today. Bike guy out, baby.